All right, this presentation, or this interview, is for my American government presentation, and it has to do with public opinion regarding the 2012 presidential election. If you'd like to state your name and your job here at Savannah State.
Yes, my name is Ellen Tosca Owings, and I'm an instructor of political science here at Savannah State University.
Okay, my first question is, in your opinion, what are some positive and negative characteristics that you see in President Obama?
Well, let's start with the positive first. I think he is an extremely intelligent man. I think that he likes to weigh his decisions, not only using the facts, but how it will impact people's lives. Like the fact that I think he has a progressive agenda. I think he is a visionary. He thinks about his tasks in terms of how will this impact the nation tomorrow. How will the citizens of these United States have to deal with my decision today, tomorrow? And I do like those things about him. I also believe he's open-minded and appreciates different cultures and diversity. I like that. I like the idea, too, that he puts emphasis on training and education, because I believe that the best defense with poverty and many, many negatives in the world is an educated mind. The negative things, perhaps, with Mr. Obama, certainly not knowing him personally, it could be a very wrong observation. But I think sometimes he might be too philosophical. Some of the things that he may want to do, the concepts may be good in a book, but actually not that applicable in some circumstances. I think, too, sometimes it seems as though he's a little bit too, if you will, strict with his immediate staff. It's been said that he doesn't, no drama Obama, mistakes aren't tolerated terribly well, and we all do make mistakes. The other thing that I don't like about him, but he can turn it off and on, is sometimes when he speaks, he uses too many ums. I noticed that, I just did that too. I noticed that during the election, I think it's really to parse his words to make sure he's conveying what he's thinking. But I noticed during the first debate, he did that terribly. The other two debates, he didn't. He can turn it on and he can turn it off. But by and large, I think many positive things about the president. I think, too, in terms of our society, being the leader in our society, I'm not sure he has a very clear vision for, in terms of social issues, where he wants the country to go. Because I think on many modern social issues, he himself is still evolving.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. What are some positive characteristics and negative characteristics? I guess positive characteristics that you would have liked to have seen out of Mitt Romney, and negative characteristics that he displayed that you would like to see him maybe tweak.
Many political scientists and professors and instructors of American government may disagree with me, but I thought for the first time in at least 4 presidential elections, the American people were the winners, and that they had 2 good candidates. They had 2 very smart men. They had 2 very accomplished men. So they were prepared emotionally, intellectually for the office. And they had 2 good men, 2 men that were great husbands, great fathers, and great friends. So the American people were the winners this time, all around. And so with that said, I do think that Mr. Romney, Governor Romney, is a smart individual. It appears as though he has an enormous work ethic. So those were two things that I appreciated. I appreciated the loyalty to his wife and family, and I don't think it's overrated. Many people with the current information about General Petraeus, many people saying because he is such a fine general that perhaps we should overlook his indiscretions. I disagree. I agree with General Petraeus. He cannot be the director of the CIA and have those discretions when he has told his subordinates that character counts. He understands that perhaps the person that he could trust the most in the world, he's let her down. And this was not a fly-by-night. It was many, many months when he could have rethought his relationship, and perhaps this was the end. Perhaps he did rethink it. But nonetheless, I think your loyalty to your family is important. To go on with what I didn't like about Governor Romney is he did seem to do things that were just expedient, perhaps, to his campaign. I was a little bit concerned about the urban rumors, if you will, the urban tales about him cutting off the credit card to his campaign workers the night of the election when it was apparent that he had been defeated. Those things aren't good, and certainly can, too, to some degree, speak to character.
Okay. As the election regarding race and people who vote strictly on race alone, do you think that played a major part in the election, that African Americans were voting just for Obama because he was black, and that and white people would vote for Romney just because he was white? In your own opinion, do you think that's what you kind of saw played out in the media or in our own, in our own society?
I think race is a factor. I think, sadly enough, that we will never rid ourselves of the issue of race and class. And certainly there was a core of voters for Mr. Obama that voted for him just because he was black. Just as you've alluded to, there was a core of voters that voted for Mr. Romney just because he was white. But to the president's credit, the president was able to enlarge his demographics to include Asians. Asian Americans and Latino Americans. They voted for the president, like 60 and 70% of those groups. Catholics, non-white Catholics voted for the president. And then certainly you had white Americans, Americans of Western European ancestry that voted for the president. So the president had a coalition that looked like the United States of America, one of the most diverse countries in the world. Mr. Romney's, constituency didn't look so diverse. In fact, they're rethinking it. But the problem I see for the Republican Party is, in order to be viable, you just cannot rethink it with Latinos. You've got to rethink it with the American diversity, with Asian Americans, with African Americans, because what will begin to happen as Latinos enjoy, if you will, a favorite minority status, they will begin to splinter. And by that I mean, and we saw this in Florida, we saw Mr. Romney's support with Latinos in Florida mainly being around Cuban Americans. And not that they exclusively went for him, but that was his pull. and you saw the increasing Puerto Rican population of Florida going towards the president. So we know that to be Latino or Hispanic is an ethnic group. It is not a race. You have black Latinos, you have white Latinos. And so people in the Latino community will have issues beyond immigration so the Republican Party, I think, has to have a broader net if they're going to be viable, because Latinos, their only concern is not just coming to America, but living and enjoying America. And then you still got the growing demographics of Asian Americans that are so diverse. And one example is, what does a person who's an Afghan or an Indonesian or Chinese, and certainly there is some common link, but 3 different cultures, and they're all Asian. So I think that in terms of race, ethnicity, and ethnicity, the Republican Party is going to have to broaden their membership, their constituency, in order to be a viable party.
Do you think who do you feel, in your own opinion, between President Obama and Governor Romney is better suited or better fit to run our country at this point in time, or not run the country, but be president of our country at this time?
You know, again, Ms. Olsen, I think that the American people won. We had 2 extremely smart gentlemen that ran for president. Mr. Obama, his undergrad degree from Columbia, of course, we know he's a summa cum laude law graduate from Harvard. Mr. Romney, his undergrad degree from Stanford, and he has both the law degree and the business from Harvard University. So not that everyone in those Ivy League schools are smart, but I think that the American public just so happened to have had 2 smart people who did go to Ivy League schools who are smart. That said, I personally felt that President Obama was better qualified at this point in his life, having been president. And because he looked at the broader spectrum, if you will, of American society, and had a comprehensive feel for the needs of Americans, and it was not slanted towards the business or economic viewpoint that I felt Mr. Romney had. Another thing that concerned me, having been in a prior life an economic development professional, is I was concerned that Mr. Romney's way of making money may be changing, and that global finance and global markets are changing a bit. And I was a little bit concerned that he might not be as sensitive to the populace as President Obama, because running a government is different from running a business. The business of, let me say it this way, the business of government and the business of a corporation is different. Now, people who manage governments have to be good fiscal managers. In a capitalist society, no organization, whether or not it's public, whether or not it's nonprofit, whether or not it's private, it's not going to be a good organization if the money isn't right. But how you make the money right in a government is different from what you do in a corporation. Because in a corporation, your bottom line is your bottom line. It's your profit.
Okay. I'm assuming that you did vote.
I did vote.
Why is it that you decided to vote, or why is it? I mean, have you been voting since you were of age to
I have
vote?
Yes.
Why is it that you decide to vote, or why is it that you vote?
That's a very good question. Number one, my father. My father was my first political science teacher. He taught me about the struggles of African Americans and he also taught me about the great history of this country. And once you know the history of America and understand the civil liberties, and that though there are some restraints in our society, they are far less than many, many countries. Once you couple that with the struggle of my people to gain political rights in this great American society, you cannot not vote. So that's why I vote. I am registered as a Democrat, but I am a self-described independent. And I admit, and I tell my students when they ask me this question, I can be an independent because we have two strong political parties. So I don't want everybody to be an independent. But personally, I rather listen at the person and the issues and vote for them instead of a label. And that's why I'm an independent. But I voted because it is one of the fundamental rights of American society. And because that right was not always afforded to African Americans nor women. It has still not been 100 years since 1920 when women got the right to vote. And many people died for that right to participate in the political system. So I vote with pride.
All right, well, that will conclude the interview.
Well, you're so welcome, Ms. Olson. I enjoyed it.